Yeah, it needed more ponies. Written by Shadowflame. Read by no one, nobody, and others.
I need more ponies.
I prevent her from having a heart attack. Angela made her way down the hallway, happily humming to herself as she waded through the current of students in an overpopulated school. First period had ended, so she decided to pay Ben a visit before moving on to her next class. Despite the current predicament of Lyle and Emily, she was still her overly cheerful self. But that was only because she believed this was helping Lyle more than it was harming him. After all, she had basically given him a first-class ticket to spend the whole day with Emily. If everything turned out all right, Lyle owed her, big time. Soon, Angela spotted Ben in the hallways and made her way over to him.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Angela. Ben replied, a bit happily since he had gotten out of his own math class by covering for Lyle. Speaking of which,
How was Lyle's physics class?
Angela asked. Ben shrugged. Kinda boring, but at least I had my phone to entertain me.
That's good.
Angela grinned.
Although I couldn't focus in my class period. My mind kept drifting back to Lyle and Emily. I wonder how they're doing.
Me too. Ben paused. Oh, that reminds me. I was thinking about it lately, but why does the normal transformation take 12 hours? Wouldn't it be less of a hassle if it only took an hour or so? Angela paused.
I didn't really think about that. It's just how I found it online. But maybe...
Thus began the witches pacing in the crowded hallway, much to the chagrin of the bystanders, trying to make their way past the pink blonde. Angela tapped a finger to her chin, oblivious of everything.
Well, the transformation is actually kind of uncomfortable to the one being changed. I've used it enough on myself to know that. But maybe the transformation was drawn out purposefully. Having your body and your bones shift would actually be really painful. So maybe the transformation was drawn out so the pain was dispersed and nothing less than an uncomfortable feeling?
Ben, trying to follow her ramblings, as well as her pacing, asked, So you're saying if the transformation went faster, then it'd be more painful? Angela, finally stopping in place, nodded to him.
Yeah, seems so.
Noting Ben's silence, Angela asked,
What?
Shouldn't we tell Lyle about this? She tapped a finger to her chin.
I guess you're right.
She then dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand.
Nah, he'll figure it out soon anyways. Besides, his transformation should finish within another hour.
Ouch!
Ow! Both me and Emily grabbed our own feet at the same time. I had no idea what just happened, but it felt like I had stepped on a pin, underneath each of my toes. Maybe I stepped on a Lego? No, wait, I'm sitting down on a couch right now, so that doesn't make any sense. And neither does the fact that Emily felt the same pain I did. I kicked off my shoes, another piece of evidence showing that I didn't step on a Lego, and noticed that my socks had become loose around the toe part. I sighed as I knew what this stage of the transformation was. But why had it hurt so much? Well, it looks like we're growing hooves now, I announced to Emily, who was fingering her sock-clad foot. She looked at me incredulously.
Seriously?
I nodded. Well, yeah, I mean, you already grew a tail and pony ears, so I doubt this is any more different. I watched as Emily gently pinched her ears. She obviously wasn't used to the fact they were there on her head. Well, at least that was a step up from before I got here. She was scared out of her mind by the ears and the tail, but at least my explanation helped ease her somewhat. At least she knew now what the buck was going on. Emily sighed as she pulled her socks up higher to get rid of the saggy part where the toes disappeared, and to hide the result.
I really don't think I'm ready to see any more changes just yet.
She glanced back towards me from her seat.
So, let me see if I've got this straight. Angela is actually a witch of some kind, who used you as a test subject for one of her spells.
I nodded. Yes, but I never knew about it until she came across a spell that actually worked.
And that was a spell to transform people into ponies?
Again, I nodded. Yeah. Much to my surprise, I was actually managing to keep my cool in this conversation, Wait, no, don't say that. I probably jinxed myself with that. Crap! Emily sighed, muttering under her breath in slight bitterness.
Great. Thanks, Angela.
You know how people say girls are cute when they get angry? Okay, some girls are cute when they're angry. Well, I can testify that that is true. Heart attack. Man, Emily even had a cute pair of pony ears to go along with it. Talk about freaking adorable. Wait, if I found Emily incredibly cute now, how would I react when she became a full pony? Yeah, I'll need to be careful. Unless I actually want to die of a heart attack from diabetes. Whew, sweet. Emily looked back towards me.
So, how long do you think it'll be before we're both fully transformed?
Emily said it'd probably finish by 10 o'clock. I glanced towards the clock hanging in the living room. So it looks like we have a full hour until it stops. Emily groaned, slumping onto her couch.
Oh, I don't know if I can take any more of this. You've already, blown my mind with everything that's happening, and I just need a rest.
My ears perked up as we both heard Emily's stomach growl. I think you need a meal, actually, I replied. Emily giggled sheepishly.
Sorry, when I woke up with a pink mane and pony ears, I was freaking out too much to eat breakfast.
She stood up from the couch.
I guess now is as good a time as any. Whoa!
Emily's yelp rang out through the house as she pitched forward onto her hands and knees. Crap, I forgot to mention how hard it was to walk on 2 hooves. 4 hooves were fine so long as the pony leg structure came with it, but walking on 2 hooves at the moment would be like walking on 2 bare stumps. It was extremely difficult, but luckily for Emily, I was experienced at it. I quickly took off my socks and jumped to my hooves. Once up, I helped Emily stand up off the floor. Are you okay? I asked as I pulled Emily up by the arm. She was a bit unstable and latched onto me for support.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't think it would be this hard to walk on hooves.
That's only because you're walking without your feet. My speech faltered as my mind registered what was currently happening. Emily was holding my arm and leaning against me. Sure, it was to keep herself upright, but it was enough to bring a blush to my face. I managed to stammer. Emily blinked a bit, with those long eyelashes.
Lyle, are you all right?
Yeah, sure. I'm just fine. I looked away, hoping she might not see the redness in my cheeks that I'm sure was very prominent. Thankfully, I think I got lucky. Emily didn't mention it, instead saying,
Okay, well, I can't exactly walk at the moment. Could you help me into the kitchen?
Walk her arm in arm into the kitchen? The red on my face only increased in vividness. Sure. I'd be glad to, if you don't mind, that is. Emily smiled.
Oh, not at all. It's fine.
So, while Emily directed me towards the kitchen, she held onto my arm and she used it as a brace for her unfamiliar footing. But every once in a while, particularly when we reached the wooden floor of her kitchen, Emily would slip and fall into me. I'd catch her, thankfully, but every time she was just so close. Each time she tripped that way, literally brought the blush racing back to my face. I never imagined I'd be this close to her, not to mention even before I went on a single date with her. I wasn't sure whether to be ecstatic or nervous. Heck, maybe even nervous-sighted. And yes, I'd call that a real word, because I actually liked the Equestria Girls movie. It sort of felt like my own life, but in reverse. Anyways, when we reached the kitchen, Emily transferred her weight from me to the kitchen counter, where she held herself up just fine. Emily gave me a smile.
Thanks for that. I think I can handle walking by myself now. You can go back to the living room if you want, unless you want something to eat too.
No, it's fine. I already had breakfast, I replied, albeit a little too fast. I honestly wanted to get out of sight, just so she wouldn't see me blushing. I'll just wait in the living room until you're done.
Okay.
I quickly turned and speed-walked back to the living room, where I plopped down onto the couch in relief. I sighed to myself as I recounted what had just happened. I had held Emily as she walked. She had even fallen onto my chest once. Yet she smiled at me when she let go of me? Did that mean she liked me? Oh my gosh, I think she actually likes me. No, wait. I can't know that for sure. Maybe she just smiled because she was being polite? Maybe... I don't know. I don't know a thing about girls. Much less how I'd know if Emily likes me or not. Sometimes I wish romance didn't have to be this I yelped as I felt pins and needles rack up my legs, as if to say,
"Hey, dummy, you've got bigger problems to deal with than your non-existent love life."
I sighed as I remembered that the next change would be the fur, which would grow up my legs until it covered every part of me. After that, my bones would change, starting with my legs up to my skull. But more pain started to come from my legs, where the current change was happening. As fur sprouted over my legs, it felt as if somebody was stabbing me with tiny little toothpicks, though not hard enough to draw blood. Gah! Why is it so painful now? Does it have to do with the transformation going twice as fast? I wondered. I seriously hope it isn't this painful for the rest of the transformation. To make a long story short, it did. An hour later, I groaned as I picked myself off the floor. So I was standing on 4 hooves. I had to admit, the pain throughout the transformation wasn't bad enough, but I got dropped to the floor when it reached my, pelvis. I always hated when that region changed anyways, I remembered as I took a good look at myself. The rest of the transformation had finished, and I found myself back in my earth pony body. Down my neck, my blue mane waved proudly towards the floor, and beneath my now oversized clothes, I could see my bright yellow hooves. Of course, like every transformation to a pony I've been through, I immediately took off my pants. In the living room of my high school crush. Screw it. If I have to choose between letting my tail air out and embarrassing myself in front of no one, the tail comes first. So I pulled off my pants and let my tail breathe in the fresh air. Just having it out always calmed me down. In fact, unless you guys already figured out, having a tail was one of my favorite parts of being a pony. That sounded like what a furry would say. Oh well, I ain't no furry, so it doesn't apply to me. I decided to take off my shirt and my hoodie as well. It's not that I suddenly become a nudist when I become a pony. It's just that they get really hot with a fur coat sometimes. The extra layers aren't really appreciated in those instances. I smiled a bit as I took a last glance at myself, towards my flank, where my cutie mark now showed proudly. My cutie mark, the book with the SPQR symbol, cried to the world that Lyle Anderson was out to lunch, and Roman Ritt was here to stay. Too bad both versions of myself are terrible with girls, I muttered to myself. Speaking of which, I should check on Emily. Hopefully she hadn't dropped anything on the floor when her front hooves suddenly grew. Emily? I made my way into the kitchen. Stark naked. No, don't think about that. Lyle, you have a fur coat now, so it's fine. I opened up the kitchen door and stepped in the doorway when I saw Emily on the tile floor. Sure enough, she was now a full pony too. She was a cyan mare with a bright pink mane. Her pajamas hung loose on her pre-shrunk form, so I couldn't see her cutie mark or anything like that. But Emily was laying on the ground next to her kitchen sink, and she was moaning to herself. Why was she moaning? Maybe she was in pain from the transformation? Suddenly, a small waft of a certain stench assailed my nostrils, causing my stomach to go queasy as I registered the scent. I knew that smell, having enjoyed it many times as a human, though my pony body didn't agree with it. I looked towards the kitchen countertop, only to find a small plate of sausages, and one of them had been bitten in half. My eyes strayed to and fro between Emily, the half-eaten sausage, to the sink, and then back down to her moaning form, until the pieces connected in my mind. As soon as I figured out what had happened, I couldn't help but start snickering. I had to cover my mouth with a hoof to keep from laughing. I had thought Emily would have thought ahead to what she was becoming and eaten something accordingly, but I guess not. I trotted up to Emily's form on the floor. She must have heard me, because hooves on wooden floor aren't exactly the quietest things in the world. But she didn't pay me any mind. She just kept her eyes closed and her hooves sprawled out to her sides. Yo, Emily, you all right? What? I couldn't help but play the reference. It was too perfect. Emily merely groaned in response, obviously catching the reference.
Ha ha. Very funny.
I chuckled a bit. Let me guess, you ate the sausages. She nodded. And they made you want to vomit? Emily grumbled under her breath.
Yes.
I laughed a bit.
Well, I guess I can't blame you, but the transformation literally changes everything in your body.
Yeah, so I hear.
Emily sighed.
I'm going to miss eating meat.
I laughed.
Well, Miss Herbivore, just be glad that the transformation is temporary. But then again, I hope.
I looked back at Emily on the floor.
Do you need help up?
Sure.
It was then that Emily opened her eyes.
Oh my gosh.
They were beautiful. Her eyes were big, with eyelashes that seemed to flap gracefully as they blinked open. In the center of those almond-shaped eyes were shimmering pink irises that gazed up at me. I think I might have let my jaw drop, because I was starstruck. But as Emily opened her eyes, they widened when they saw me. The pony me.
Roman Rit?
I face-hoofed. I completely forgot that I never told Emily who I really was when I was visiting her as Roman. Without even needing my help, Emily stood up onto her hooves, so she was eye to eye with me. One hoof rose up to her mouth in shock as she took a closer look at me.
Oh my gosh, Lyle, you're Roman?
Yeah.
I answered, in a bit of a defeated tone. I had never intended for her to find out.
Heck, she found out before we even went on a date. Well, that failed.
Emily still couldn't believe it.
The pony I found in the hallway at school. The one who'd visit me those nights. That was you?
Following her tone, I wasn't sure whether she was happy or angry, but I could definitely pick up the surprise in her voice. I nodded.
Yeah, that was me.
Emily's face looked like she was a bit conflicted.
All this time, you were just another guy from my school. Why did you never tell me?
I looked at her right then. I wasn't sure how to answer that. I didn't want to tell her the truth, yet have her get the wrong idea. But what else was I supposed to do? If I was going to tell her sometime in the future, now was as good a time as any. I sat down on my flank, looking down at the floor. It could have been out of shame for hiding my identity from Emily, or embarrassment for what I was about to say. Maybe even both. I sighed.
Look, Emily, if I'm going to explain why Roman Rit did what he did, or rather what I did, you need to know one thing first.
I gulped.
I sort of have a crush on you.
Wow. I didn't know my heart could beat this fast. Is that my adrenaline acting up too? I guess that'd be the reason why I suddenly wanted to gallop out of the room right now. I just told a girl I had a crush on her.
What was I thinking? That's probably the only rule of high school dating I know. Wait, is there such a thing as dating rules? I don't know. I'm panicking and I can't calm down.
Emily looked slightly taken aback, probably out of disgust with my luck.
Wait, what?
I rubbed the back of my neck with a hoof sheepishly.
Before I even became Roman Rit, I had always been admiring you from far away, but I could never really bring myself to come up to you and ask you out on a date. But after you first saw me as a pony, you treated me really nicely, like I was one of your friends. So I thought, if I became a pony, I could get you to go out with me,
But what?
Emily's voice sounded more concerned now. That couldn't be good. I sighed.
Even after all the times I visited you, I was too scared to get you to go out with Lyle Anderson, so I never did.
I shook my head, sighing again.
Of course, that changed when Angela dragged me over to ask you out. At that point, I realized I never really needed to become a pony to ask you out.
I paused.
It sounds kind of silly, right?
I looked up at Emily's face to see her eyeing me for a moment. An unreadable look on her face. And then she burst into giggles.
Oh, that's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
I looked down at the ground dejectedly. Usually when people in high school, or at least my high school, said that, it was kind of degrading.
Dang it, I blew it.
Seeing my expression, Emily quickly added.
No, I meant that as a good thing.
She giggled again.
That's the most flattering thing anyone's ever told me.
My ears perked up in surprise.
It is?
Okay, I was confused. How did this whole explanation not make me seem like a creeper? Is it possible I didn't botch it? Wait, now that I think about it, nothing about it seemed like creeper material. Oh, well, besides the visiting her at night part. Remind me to never let anyone else hear about that. Emily smiled and sat down in front of me.
Really, Roman, or Lyle, whichever you go by. That's so sweet of you to tell me that.
She giggled.
Whenever someone has asked me on a date, it hasn't been as adventurous as this.
She looked down at her hooves, finally looking comfortable with their existence.
I mean, getting turned into a pony was surprising, but I think I might like it. Albeit, I can't eat meat at the moment.
Thanks?
Emily smiled.
So, you really had a crush on me?
My face probably grew a tint more red.
Oh, yeah. Well, I, still have a crush on you. It's just,
Emily looked at me again, from head to hoof, before giggling again.
Well, to be fair, I think you're a cute boy. Both as a pony and a human.
Oh, thanks.
I smiled nervously. I can't believe I had gotten this far without having something blow up in my face. Back there I thought I was overly screwed, so you can't really blame me for thinking that. Emily's smile faded as she glanced around the kitchen, unnerved by the fact that she now stood as tall as her kitchen table.
So, what now? You said the transformation was only temporary, right?
I nodded,
Yeah, it should wear off by early morning tomorrow.
though big emphasis on should. With the double speed, who knows what other effects there'd be. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it turned us into alicorns in the middle of the day,
Oh, then I guess we should hang out here until then.
Emily suggested.
I mean, the only ones who would get home tonight are my dad and my little sister, but my sis has piano practice, so they both won't get here until late afternoon.
Great.
I smiled.
That sounds good. And before they get here, we can leave and hide out at Angela's house. After all, she's the one who got us into this mess, so she owes me.
Emily looked down at herself again, and more specifically her clothes.
Well, now that I'm a pony, I guess I don't need to wear these right now.
So she stripped right there in the middle of the kitchen. Immediately, I looked away. My face was probably glowing red, because it sure felt like it. Man, it was both funny and cruelly ironic how mundane civilized standards get thrown out the window with Angela's transformations. Exhibit A. The wearing of clothes. Now optional. I heard Emily giggle behind me.
Don't worry, Lyle, you can look. Besides, now I'm wearing a really nice fur coat.
She joked. I rolled my eyes.
You know, Angela always made that joke whenever she turned herself into a unicorn.
I turned back towards Emily to see her, naked.
Yeah, there was no way to say that without it sounding weird. Just remember the context, please.
With her pajamas off, I saw the rest of Emily's body. To my surprise, a pair of wings were folded against her sides. This was the first time I'd actually seen a Pegasus in real life. Her feathers looked more lifelike than the show animated them. Bright cyan, and there were quite a few of them. I also caught sight of her tail, which was styled similar like her mane. Bright pink, long, and seemed to swirl in place as it drooped towards the ground. My eyes wandered down to her cutie mark, which was depicted by a clear pool of water. I wasn't quite sure what it meant, though. I'd have to ask Emily sometime. But I didn't think to at the moment because, my eyes continued to wander. My eyes drifted over her body, enchanted by just about every feature. Those curvy hips, her eyes, her mane, down to her... All right, fine. I was looking down at her plot, too. But I was surprised I even found Emily attractive as a pony, too. No, I'm not a clopper! And I think the transformation also gave me pony hormones. So, it'd make sense.
So, what do we do now?
Emily asked, rubbing a hoof with her other one. Unfortunately, the question shook me away from checking her out anymore.
Oh, let's see here. Right now, it's about 10 o'clock, and we should leave Emily's house around 4 or 5, so that leaves us with about 6 hours to kill. Well, whenever I have extra hours to kill as a pony, I always go to the next best thing to do. Video games.
Emily raised an eyebrow.
What? How do you play video games as a pony? Isn't it kind of hard to do with hooves?
I chuckled a bit.
Surprisingly not. I just don't think about the fact that I have hooves now, and they suddenly work like hands. It's kind of weird, but useful.
I glanced around her home.
So, do you happen to have any video games?
Emily nodded.
Yeah, just an old GameCube.
I beamed. The GameCube had been my favorite system, other than the N64. What can I say? This history geek likes the old stuff better. Ironic, right?
Sweet, lead the way.
So, Emily directed us out of the kitchen, though she stumbled a bit on her hooves. But after giving her a few pointers, she began walking fine. She led us upstairs to a room she called the den. Actually, it was a room full of entertainment stuff, including a large TV, a desktop computer, a couple of game systems, as well as a few books in the back corner. But as we made our way into the room, Emily gave me a curious look.
So, you said the transformation would wear off late tonight, right?
I nodded as I began leafing through a stack of GameCube games.
Yep.
Well then, what's the plan for our date tonight?
I stopped with a start, turning towards Emily with wide eyes.
What?
Emily giggled at my expression.
You did ask me out on a date tonight. After you told me about your crush on me, it's the least I could do for you.
I blinked in surprise.
You seriously want to go out on a date like this?
I gestured to our pony selves. Emily nodded.
Yep. Besides, I think it'd be more fun to go as a pony.
I stared at Emily in disbelief. It wasn't because she still wanted to go out with me, but because her reasoning was exactly like Angela's. Maybe Angela really did think these things through. Sometimes. Very big emphasis on sometimes. Of course, the problem was that I had no idea what to do for a date. I had no plans whatsoever. I sighed.
I don't really know what to do with our date tonight, but I'll try to think of something. Preferably over a few games of Super Smash Bros.
I pulled said game out and held it up to Emily. She giggled.
Sure, but I won't lie, I'm pretty good at that game.
That brought a grin to my face.
A new competitor. Let's see what you've got.